Right, guys. Well, thank you very much. All the way from Boston, Massachusetts. Is that right?
That's right.
Brilliant. So, guys, tell us how the Deep End games started, first of all.
Well, it's funny. Amanda and I, we've been married for over 10 years now, and we've always had the same hobbies. We've always enjoyed video games together.
Nice.
We collaborate on her novels. We collaborate on my work and working on the Bioshock series. And essentially after Irrational shuttered, we had this opportunity to sort of figure out what was next. And we were kicking around some ideas to maybe start up a company. And then eventually this idea to create a horror game where you play as a blind protagonist hit us.
Awesome.
And we immediately started jumping in and figuring out how to make that happen. And so, again, it was just an opportunity that we had to pursue, both from a game perspective, but also to collaborate together.
Yeah, formally to be able to do this together, to formally collaborate together is just, we couldn't say no.
Right.
No. Well, it sounds awesome. I mean, there's a lot of experience as well with the Deep End games, isn't there? A lot of amazing titles that you've worked on there. Bioshock Infinite, Dead Space, just to name a few.
Sure.
I mean,
absolutely.
how's that sort of how's that transition been? Coming from, the likes of Irrational to then creating your own studio.
Yeah, well, it's a very different experience for sure.
Yeah.
I think that coming from a big what eventually became at Irrational a really really big AAA studio. Originally we're relatively small, but you just have to approach the design, you have to approach production very differently. You have to be, I think, a lot savvier in deciding which challenges you're going to take on. Right. Whereas on Bioshock Infinite, it was basically it had to be right. Everything had to be big and over the top and make a big statement. Here we're I think being a lot more disciplined about what we're taking on, and I think it makes for a more focused production.
Sure.
And hopefully a more focused design and experience as well. But there are a lot of pros and cons to both coming from working at Irrational, but then also going independent. I think we're a very tight knit team, very agile, and I think we're super excited to be masters of our own fate.
That's brilliant. I mean, from what we've seen in the footage, the game is looking absolutely incredible, guys. You can tell you've put a lot of work into it.
Thanks.
I mean, from start to finish, how did the whole concept of Perception, come about? It's looking an absolutely amazing first-person narrative horror, mixed with a bit of adventure in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're always batting around ideas, and I think that I was actually the seed of the idea. We were kicking around some ideas for horror games because it's just a huge passion of ours.
Yeah.
And so actually the initial seed for Perception came from one night in grad school. It was my final semester, and my professor one night just said to the class, hey, tonight you're all going to walk to your cars. And by the time you put the keys in the ignition, you're all gonna come up with a brilliant idea. And
that's brilliant.
I love that sort of challenge. Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah.
So I'm
that's great.
Walking to my car, and sure enough, I'm racking my brain, thinking, okay, we've been kicking around some horror ideas. We should start up a company. We should start up a game. What kind of what's new? What would be new in horror? How can we bring a fresh perspective here?
That's awesome.
And conveniently enough, I had also been studying a lot about accessibility and a lot about designing for accessibility and all that. And so the idea hit me what if you played a horror game as a blind woman? And I remember specifically sitting in my car that night trying to figure out how the heck am I going to make this happen. And we started kicking things around, and sure enough, things definitely snowballed.
Well, that's it. I mean, the horror, franchise and the whole genre itself, it's taken a bit of a mixed fall, hasn't it, in the last sort of few years. So, how has the development been, with Perception in, making sure it stands out from what has been sort of the last 5 years or so?
Well, I think you touched upon one of the keys there is that, the horror genre is really booming. And I think it's important. It's becoming increasingly important to find ways to stand out. And that was what drew me to the concept. That was what drew us both to the concept.
Sure.
When I pitched the seed of the idea, I specifically remember you lighting up and being like, "Oh, we could." I mean, do you remember specifically? Yeah.
Brilliant.
And so yeah, I think it's important to stand out. And so as soon as we started talking about horror in general, I immediately started talking to you because I felt like horror was due for a real narrative overhaul, due for a fresh perspective in narrative, and that's
totally agree, guys. I think that's what's been missing for me in the horror genre lately. So that's why I'm super excited about Perception. So I mean, in terms of the story, for those people that haven't checked it out yet, tell us how it all started. Tell us the whole story of what's going on, with Cassie and the haunted house itself, because I mean that plays a big part as a character, doesn't it, in itself?
Oh, absolutely. So little bit of background about where Bill and I live. We live north of Boston, North Shore of Massachusetts, and there's such amazing history in the towns that we live in, like the surrounding towns. And there's so much sort of like urban lore and really just like tons of creepy stories where we're from.
Wow.
Lots of old houses, and we set it in the town of Gloucester, which is only 20 minutes from us. And we sort of came up with this narrative lore about this estate at Echo Bluff that for centuries and generations of owners, it's sort of tormented them, and nobody really knows what's going on there. And
awesome.
This young blind woman, Cassie, she is haunted by her nightmares of the place, and so she finally finds it and hops on a plane. She's very headstrong. She's like, well, I'm gonna go find it. It doesn't matter if she's blind. Like, she's just like, I'm gonna do this because I'm Cassie. Hops on a plane, gets there, and then once she gets there, she's like, okay, now I have to figure out, why am I here? What's going on in this place? And immediately draws her into this sort of saga that lapses over centuries of torment and bizarre happenings, and we really tried to tie in the sort of whole New England vibe, and I think it's really exciting, and I think it is scary.
I love the enthusiasm in your voice, Amanda. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, in terms of gameplay as well, I mean, what sort of entities and enemies can we expect in Perception? To be sort of tormenting Cassie in a way.
Sure. Well, I think that the house is very rich with the history, and it the house really bleeds a lot of the drama that and mystery that occurred over the centuries. But the primary foe you'll encounter is something we call the Presence, very mysterious shade-like figure who roams the halls looking for you. You engage in this sort of cat and mouse or hide and seek game where you have to very carefully weigh. Sound is how you see in the world. You use echolocation, and so if your only means of seeing is creating essentially the thing that's going to draw the Presence to you, your main threat, you become very it creates this tension of like how much
of course.
noise.
We have to be really careful, I guess, whilst going through certain parts.
Absolutely, and so you'll have to use the environment to create distractions and things like that. And so you saw, I don't know if you saw some of our videos, but there's a sequence where you turn on a TV, you find a remote control, you turn on a TV, and it's sort of like Presence is coming towards you, and it all of a sudden kind of turns, and it just gives you enough time to sneak out the back door. And so that that's exactly what you'll do. You'll build this relationship with the space, which is your enemy. Echo Bluff itself is very much a character, but then the Presence is a much more proactive, hunting you down character, and it's meant to be like, again, a very terrifying game of cat and mouse.
Yes.
Well, I saw some of the footage, and I like sort of the little nods that you're giving to the horror genre itself. Sort of there was like little spiders that would come on screen, for a very split second. You'd see something in the corner for another split second, and turn around, there'd be a loud bang, and you'd be like, oh God, just watching that for me, I was on the edge of my seat. So, you guys are doing a great job. I mean, I know audio as well has been a really, really important part of the development for you guys.
Absolutely.
I understand you've, sought help from other people, within the team.
Yep.
How's the development with audio been? How important is that to Perception?
Well, I think audio is critical for for any horror experience, for any horror game, film, you name it. I think that's what's gonna fill in the blanks, but it's also what's gonna tease the player and the viewer. I think a lot of times, and I think more recently, horror has fallen into a lot of issues where I think we have the ability now to show anything, and I think that's a bit of a problem. You don't always want to show.
No.
I think so. Working directly with Jim, who I worked with for years on the Bioshock series, has been fantastic because we have a really strong rapport. But I think it's also that he's excited by a challenge. I think we're all excited by a challenge, and this is something that I think we're trying to think about sound in a different way. Not only in the sense that it's what creates visuals, but also in the sense that what would a person with very heightened hearing experience? How would they experience the world? And walking through the space as Cassie, she's going to pick out sounds very differently than we would. There are layers in the sounds that we don't necessarily hear, and I think that gives us the opportunity to really flex some creative muscle. And I think add layers of fear that are really, I think, different and fresh.
And audio is defense in this game, where I think that's a really unique and fresh perspective too. And Jim Bonney is just a genius. He's a BAFTA winning, and you should just hear some of the sounds he creates. And when he tells us how he made them, we're like, so you smashed a frozen cabinet? Like he's just genius,
I remember watching a video not long back, and he was talking about vomiting sounds.
Oh God, his vomiting sounds sound way too
way too real, right? Yeah, and he described that listening to 50 different vomit sounds was not a pleasant experience. But it shows the great detail and the depth that you're willing to go into for this game. And that makes you unique in itself for the horror genre.
It's very nuanced.
And I think that's why I'm personally so excited about it. And obviously there are a lot of other people excited about it. You've had a bit of coverage from other people quite recently. And the response has been great, I imagine.
Yeah, we're very pleased.
We're excited.
I think, when we first had the concept, we were a little nervous because it is a different game, I think part of my goal for the Deep End has always been to create games that when you first hear the pitch for them, there's a little bit of apprehension, there's a little bit of fear, there's a little bit of like, wait, how you're gonna make a game with featuring a blind person? Like, how does that work? And then something clicks, and you're like, oh, I get it. That sounds that I haven't seen that before. I'm in. A little bit of that.
That was my first initial thought as well, until I actually checked it out, and I was like, wow, like they've done a really good job of this.
Cool.
So it's unique, it's great. Now, platform-wise, we're looking at Steam, aren't we, at the moment, with potential console in the future? Yeah,
absolutely. I'm an omni gamer. I play everything. We both really, really want to bring it to consoles. However, we did kickstart this project, and our first priority is absolutely to our backers. And so, we have dev kits for Xbox and for Xbox One and PS4 here. I really want to make that happen, but I'm not going to commit until I know for sure that we're going to be able to nail the quality and that we're not going to make any compromise. So that's something we're definitely looking into. I haven't announced anything yet, but I'm just being trying to be fair and cautious at the same time.
Yeah, no, that's totally understandable. Fingers crossed, guys, we're going to see it on all platforms in the future. It looks absolutely incredible. We have got some footage to show and a few screenshots as well.
Awesome.
Guys, thank you very much for coming on the show. Very excited about Perception. Where can everyone check you out?
The best place is thedeependgames.com or our Twitter account.
At the Deep End Games.
Pretty And obviously you've still got that Kickstarter page going as well.
Well, the Kickstarter, the page is there. You can get some details on it. We pretty much have all of the details on the videos anyway on our main page of thedeependgames.com. But there's some additional stuff on the Kickstarter. We are taking pre-orders through our website, but the Kickstarter is essentially closed.
Brilliant. Perfect. Well, guys, we're all looking forward to it. Do we have a potential release date just yet?
We're looking at very late summer, early fall. We haven't nailed down exactly the date, and again, it's partly due to the fact that we want to make sure that we hit it, and we're being realistic and all that sort of thing. So very late summer, early fall.
Perfect. Sounds great. Well, guys, I'd like to thank Bill Gardner and Amanda Gardner for coming on the show. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing more on the game.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.